In a distant corner of the galaxy, the Zorathian Empire set its eyes on a new target. For centuries, the Zorathians had been the rulers of their part of the universe. They controlled vast swaths of space, defeating countless civilizations and spreading their influence without challenge. Their technology was unmatched, and their military might was feared by all. But there was one place that had always been a mystery to them, a place that had intrigued them for years, even before they had learned of humanity. A small planet, located far beyond the borders of their own galaxy, lay quietly in a secluded star system. This planet was home to humans, a species that, despite their seemingly primitive technology, had built a reputation for being resourceful and stubborn. The Zorathian Emperor had long been fascinated by humanity's ability to survive and expand in such a vast, hostile universe. There had been whispers, rumors even, that humanity's space was something special, that no one had ever dared to enter. Yet the Zorathians were confident that they could defeat anyone. With the conquest of this human planet, they would have control over an area of space that had long remained a puzzle. Admiral Zyrak, the leader of the Zorathian fleet, was chosen to lead the operation. His fleet of battle cruisers, warships, and support vessels would carry the Zorathian flag into human space and claim the planet as their own. The Zorathians were known for their aggression, but Zyrak was different. He was known for his patience, his strategic mind, and his relentless drive to conquer. As his fleet sailed through the stars, Zyrak sat at the helm of his flagship, Vanguard of Zorath. The cold metallic hum of the ship's engines vibrated through his command deck, filling him with an anticipation he had rarely felt before. He knew this mission would not be as simple as others. There was something about humanity's space that had always intrigued him, a reputation that he could not ignore. "Admiral, we have reached the outer edge of human space," came the voice of his first officer, Commander Solara. Her tone was steady but laced with uncertainty. She had spent years preparing for this moment, but even she could not shake the sense of unease. "Good," Zyrak replied, his voice calm yet filled with purpose. "Prepare the fleet for entry. Send the message to the humans. They will understand the power of the Zorathian Empire." His command was simple. He would send a message to the humans, offering them a chance to surrender peacefully. If they did not comply, he would show them the might of his fleet. The message was broadcast across the communication channels, a message the humans could not ignore. "This is Admiral Zyrak of the Zorathian Empire. You are surrounded. We demand immediate surrender. Refusal will result in the complete destruction of your forces. Surrender your planet to us, and we will spare your people. We will not ask again." There was a long pause after the transmission ended. Zyrak watched the view screen, waiting for a response. He did not expect much. Humans were often stubborn after all, but he expected them to at least respond. But as the minutes passed, the silence grew louder. It was almost as if they were mocking him. "Admiral, no response," Solara reported. "The humans haven't even acknowledged our message." Zyrak stood from his chair, his black eyes narrowing. He had dealt with stubborn species before, but this was different. This was a challenge. "Send the message again. This time, make sure they know we are serious." Another broadcast was sent, this time with more force behind it. The Zorathian fleet moved deeper into human space, past the outer rim and closer to the heart of the planet they intended to conquer. Still, there was no response. The humans were playing a dangerous game, Zyrak thought. He was growing impatient, but he knew that the first step in any great victory was patience. Then, as if on cue, a small human vessel emerged from the shadows of a nearby asteroid belt. It was a sleek, narrow ship, nothing like the massive warships of the Zorathian fleet. It moved cautiously toward the fleet as if testing the waters. "Admiral, we have visual on a human vessel," Solara announced. It's a small one, possibly a scout. Zirak studied the ship on his screen. It was barely visible against the backdrop of the stars, a mere speck of light in the vastness of space. This is their response? A scout ship? Zirak mused. It seems they are more confident than I expected. No matter. Open a channel, Commander, Zirak ordered. Solara complied, and soon the view screen flickered to life. The face of a human appeared, a young woman dressed in a dark flight suit. Her expression was calm, but Zirak could sense the tension in her posture. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Forces, the woman said. You have entered human space. State your intentions. Zirak gave a cold smile. We are here to claim what is rightfully ours, he said. Your planet, your resources, your space. It belongs to the Zorathian Empire now. Captain Reyes didn't flinch. We don't surrender. We don't bow to anyone. You may have your fleets and your weapons, but you'll never take what belongs to us. You've been warned. The screen went black before Zirak could respond. The human ship disappeared into the darkness of space, as if it had never been there. Zirak's fingers tightened around the armrests of his chair. His patience was wearing thin. The Zorathians had never been told no. To them, resistance was something to be crushed quickly. Commander, send the order. We begin the assault immediately, Zirak commanded. He was ready for war. As the Zorathian fleet advanced, it seemed like an easy victory. They were about to overpower the humans with sheer firepower. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have possibly anticipated, was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their weapons or their technology. It lay in their ability to adapt, to use the environment to their advantage, and to think when everyone else simply acted. The Zorathians continued their advance into the heart of human space, unaware of the intricate web of traps that awaited them. The Zorathian fleet advanced deeper into human space, the black expanse of stars around them suddenly feeling smaller. Zirak's flagship, Vanguard of Zorath, cut through the void, its engines thrumming with power. Behind it, the rest of the fleet followed, a sea of warships and battle cruisers, all bristling with weapons. Zirak sat at the helm, his fingers lightly drumming on the command console as he stared at the vast darkness outside the ship. He had expected the humans to fight back. He had expected resistance. But he had not expected this quiet. The silence was unsettling. The human fleet had not responded. They hadn't even launched an attack. This was the first sign that something was wrong. Zirak's mind raced as he considered all possibilities. Commander Solara, status report, Zirak ordered, his voice calm but edged with impatience. We've entered the outer ring of human space. Admiral, no signs of any human vessels so far, Solara replied from her station. It's almost too quiet. Zirak didn't respond immediately. He had been in space long enough to know that quiet could mean many things. Sometimes it was the calm before the storm. Other times it was a trap. And the humans. Zirak had a growing feeling that they were not the type to fall into a trap. They were smarter than that. The fleet moved forward, undeterred. Zirak had no intention of backing down. They would push forward until they had conquered this world, or until they were forced to turn back. The Zorathian Empire did not retreat. As the hours passed, Zirak's unease grew. His sensors remained clear. No human ships, no warnings, nothing. His fleet was alone in a sea of stars. He couldn't help but feel that something was watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then, as the fleet neared the planet's orbital radius, things began to change. The first sign of trouble came when the fleet's long-range sensors began to glitch. The normally reliable readings became distorted, with strange interference flooding the screens. Zirak's brow furrowed as he studied the readings. Commander, Solara, can you make sense of this? He asked. Solara was quick to respond, her fingers flying over the control panel. There's something blocking our sensors, Admiral. The interference is coming from a nearby asteroid belt. It's too coordinated to be natural. Zirak's eyes narrowed. We're being jammed, he said, more to himself than to his crew. Deploy scout ships. Find the source of this interference. The fleet's smaller vessels were sent ahead, equipped with more advanced sensor systems meant to probe and detect hidden objects or signals. But even as the scout ships moved forward, something else began to happen. The fleet's forward progress began to slow. The vanguard of Zorath was moving, but at a fraction of its usual speed. Admiral, we're experiencing a gravitational anomaly. It's like something is pulling us, Solara reported, her voice tight. With confusion, Zirak stood up, pacing in front of the command console. Increase power to the engines. Push through it. The Zorathian fleet strained against whatever invisible force was holding them back. The ships groaned as their engines worked overtime, but the force was relentless. Zirak watched in disbelief as his fleet, once so powerful and unstoppable, was being dragged into the unknown. For the first time in his long career, Zirak felt the sting of fear. This was not a battle he could win with just strength. Admiral, Solara said, her voice trembling slightly, we need to pull back. This could be a trap. We've underestimated the humans. We're being drawn into something we don't understand. Zirak clenched his fists. No, we are not retreating. Send another wave of scout ships. We will not be deterred. The scout ships pushed forward into the gravitational anomaly, their engines firing up as they struggled against the pull. Moments later, a chilling message came through the communications channel. Admiral, we've lost contact with the scout ships. They've vanished. We've lost them completely, one of the officers reported. Zirak's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary trap. The humans were playing a game, and they were the ones who controlled the rules. The Zorathians had been led into a web of their own making. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zirak barked. Get us out of here. But it was too late. Without warning, massive holographic images began to flicker across the fleet's sensors, filling the view screens with ghostly shapes. At first, they appeared to be more of the human ships, their hulls sleek and dark, moving in formation. Then, the illusion became more sinister. The ships turned to face the Zorathian fleet, weapons charging, ready to fire. Admiral, we're surrounded, Solara said, her voice barely a whisper. But as quickly as the illusion had appeared, it vanished. The holographic ships were gone, replaced by a calm, empty space. Zirak felt a chill crawl down his spine. The humans were toying with them. They were playing with his fleet like a cat with a mouse. Report, Zirak demanded. We're seeing strange readings, Admiral. It's as if the space around us is shifting. One moment it's empty, and the next, there's something there. Like we're being stalked, Solara replied, her voice tight with unease. Zirak took a deep breath. He had faced overwhelming odds before, but this was different. The Zorathians had always relied on their superior firepower, their advanced technology, and their sheer strength. But here, in human space, none of that mattered. Admiral, we've detected something large in the distance, one of the officers called out. Zirak turned to face the officer, his mind racing. What is it? The officer hesitated, then spoke in a quiet voice. It looks like a massive battle station, but it doesn't show up on any of our scans. It's completely invisible. Zirak's heart pounded in his chest. A battle station hidden and cloaked in plain sight, waiting. The humans had set up defenses they had never even thought to imagine. And now they were trapped. Commander, what are our options? Zirak asked, his voice calmer now, more measured. We can't stay here, Admiral. If we don't find a way out of this anomaly, we'll be lost, Solara said, her voice filled with urgency. Zirak stared at the view screen. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of the Zorathian Empire's might slipping through his fingers. His fleet, once invincible, was now helpless in the face of a force they couldn't see, let alone fight. The humans had outsmarted them, and they hadn't even fired a shot. "Move forward," Zyrak ordered. "Find the source of this anomaly. Whatever it takes, we must break free. The Empire does not retreat." As the Zorathian fleet continued its journey through the maze of human space, Zyrak couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just trapped by the anomaly, but by something far more dangerous, humanity's cunning. The Zorathian fleet continued its slow advance through human space, each ship strained under the strange gravitational anomaly that had them trapped. The invisible force that pulled at their vessels had not let up, and though they tried to escape, it was clear that this wasn't just a natural phenomenon, this was deliberate. Someone, or something, was orchestrating their every move. Admiral Zyrak stood at the helm of his flagship, Vanguard of Zorath, his mind racing as he looked over the tactical display. His fleet, once so powerful, now seemed vulnerable. His eyes darted to the nearby view screen, which displayed a cold, empty void. There were no enemy ships in sight, no signs of life at all. Yet, Zyrak knew the humans were watching, waiting, and preparing for their next move. "Commander Solara, what are our options?" Zyrak asked, his voice calm but laced with an undercurrent of frustration. He had always been in control, but now he was losing his grip. Solara was standing at her station, her hands working quickly across the console. "The gravitational field is still holding us in place. Our engines are at full power, but we can't break free. We're being kept here, Admiral. We're being studied." Zyrak frowned, his fists clenched. "Studied? By whom?" "By the humans, sir," she replied. "They must have set this up a long time ago. This is their territory, and we're trespassing." Zyrak's mind worked quickly. The humans had always been considered a lesser threat by the galaxy's most powerful empires. Their technology was nowhere near the Zorathians' level, and their military strength was relatively weak compared to the great alien forces. But what the humans lacked in power, they made up for in resourcefulness and cunning. And now, Zyrak was learning that those qualities were far more dangerous than he had imagined. "Send out a signal," Zyrak said, his voice cutting through the silence in the command deck. "Tell them we want to negotiate. I'll give them one last chance to surrender. This isn't a war we wanted." Solara raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the change in Zyrak's tone. But she didn't question him. She immediately sent the transmission. "Humans," Zyrak's voice echoed through the comm system. "We are here to claim what is rightfully ours. You have no chance of resisting us. Surrender your planet and we will. Spare your people. Refusal will only lead to further bloodshed." Zyrak leaned back in his chair, watching the empty space around them, waiting for a response. He knew the humans would try to outsmart them, but he was ready for whatever they had planned. They had no chance of victory. After all, the Zorathian fleet was unmatched. But then, a strange thing happened. The comm channel, once silent, crackled to life. "Admiral Zyrak," a calm voice came through, soft but firm. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Forces. We've heard your demands and we will not surrender." Zyrak felt his pulse quicken. He had expected resistance, but this response, this calm, unwavering defiance, took him by surprise. Then, "Prepare for battle," Zyrak said, his voice hardening. "You've made your choice." Without warning, the human fleet revealed itself. They had been hiding in plain sight, just as the Zorathians had feared. Stealth ships, once thought to be myths, appeared from the shadows of nearby asteroids. Their designs were sleek and fast, nothing like the large, lumbering Zorathian ships, but they were deadly, their weapons charged and ready. The human ships moved with precision, circling the Zorathian fleet, surrounding them in a perfect formation. Zirak's eyes narrowed as he watched the tactical display, which was now filled with the presence of dozens of small, fast-moving human ships. "Commander, what's their plan?" Zirak asked, his mind racing. "They're trying to outmaneuver us." "Admiral," Solara replied, her voice steady. "They're too fast. We can't catch them with our larger ships." Zirak growled under his breath. The humans were not just fighting with their technology. They were fighting with strategy. The Zorathians had always relied on their overwhelming force, but here, in human space, they were at a disadvantage. "Engage with the fleet," Zirak ordered. "We can't let them surround us. Open fire." The Zorathian fleet responded, unleashing a barrage of missiles and energy blasts toward the encircling human ships. But the humans were faster than Zirak had anticipated. Their ships darted in and out of the barrage, dodging each strike with ease. The Zorathian weapons, powerful as they were, could not hit the agile human vessels. "This is impossible," Zirak shouted. "How are they moving so fast?" "Their ships are equipped with advanced maneuvering thrusters," Solara explained. "They can change direction almost instantly. Our weapons can't track them in time." Zirak clenched his teeth. He had underestimated the humans. He had thought them weak, easy to defeat, but now he realized how wrong he had been. "All units, switch." "To defensive mode," Zirak ordered, trying to salvage what he could from the situation. "Target their engines. We need to disable their ships." The Zorathian fleet began to adjust its tactics, focusing fire on the human ship's engines and propulsion systems. But even with their larger, more powerful weapons, they struggled to land a hit. The human ships danced around them, their small size and speed giving them an almost supernatural advantage. Then, out of nowhere, a human ship darted forward at incredible speed, breaking through the line of fire. It was a sleek black vessel, its surface reflecting the light of nearby stars. Zirak's eyes widened as the ship approached Vanguard of Zorath. "Admiral, look!" Solara shouted. The human ship, despite the constant barrage of fire from the Zorathian fleet, shot forward with incredible precision. In the blink of an eye, it slammed into the side of one of the smaller Zorathian ships, tearing through its shields and hull like paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending debris and sparks flying into space. "Damage report," Zirak barked. "Direct hit to our port side, Admiral," one of the officers reported. "Shields are down to 40%. We've lost contact with the auxiliary fleet." Zirak stood up, his eyes burning with fury. He had not expected this. The humans were not just skilled fighters. They were also fearless. They were willing to sacrifice their ships for the chance to inflict damage. This was not a battle of technology. This was a battle of will. "Target that ship," Zirak ordered. "Focus all firepower on it. Bring it down." The Vanguard of Zorath unleashed a wave of energy, targeting the human ship. But the human vessel was already gone, disappearing into the vastness of space, leaving only the wreckage of a destroyed Zorathian ship in its wake. "This is madness," Zirak muttered under his breath. "They're not afraid to die. They'll sacrifice everything." As the battle raged on, Zirak realized that he was facing an enemy unlike any he had encountered before. The humans had not only prepared their space, but they had mastered the art of guerrilla warfare in a way that no one had predicted. They didn't just fight to win, they fought to survive. The battle in the empty expanse of human space raged on. The Zorathian fleet, once a symbol of supreme power and dominance, was now caught in a struggle they hadn't anticipated. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Zirak found himself questioning his previous assumptions about humanity. The humans weren't just defending their space, they were using their knowledge of it to trap him and his fleet in ways he couldn't understand. The Vanguard of Zorath was barely holding together. Its shields were down to 30%, and the once pristine hull had several dents and scorch marks from the ongoing battle. The smaller human ships darted around them like flies, elusive and impossible to hit. Zirak clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. Admiral, we've lost another cruiser, Solara reported, her voice grim. The humans' tactics are overwhelming us. We can't keep up. Zirak's mind raced. They needed to do something drastic. Their current strategy wasn't working, and they were running out of time. If they didn't make a move soon, they would lose everything. How many human ships are left? Zirak asked, though he already knew the answer. The number of human ships was dwindling, but they were still moving faster and more strategically than anything the Zorathian fleet had ever encountered. 70% of their fleet is still intact, Admiral, Solara replied, but they're not fighting conventionally. They're using guerrilla tactics, harassing us at every turn. We've never seen anything like it. Zirak's mind sharpened. Guerrilla tactics. This was not how the humans had been described in any intelligence reports. Everything he had known about them was wrong. They had far more to them than brute force. They were resourceful, and they knew how to fight in ways that even the mightiest fleet could not predict. Suddenly, a new transmission came through, cutting through the chaos of the battle. Zirak's eyes narrowed as he listened. Admiral Zirak. The voice was calm, but it carried a sense of authority. It was unmistakably human. This is Captain Elena Reyes. I'm sure you've realized by now that this is not a battle you can win. You may have the advantage in numbers, but we have something you don't. Knowledge. Your ships are powerful, but they're operating in an environment you don't understand. Zirak felt a cold chill. What do you mean? He demanded, his voice hardening. Explain yourself, human. Captain Reyes's voice remained steady. You've entered a zone of space that was designed specifically to repel invaders. Our ancestors created it long ago as a final defense in case our enemies ever grew too powerful. It's not just the gravitational anomalies or the sensor jamming. It's something far worse than that. Zirak was silent for a moment. His mind was racing as he tried to make sense of the words. The human planet had been prepared for something like this, an invasion. But how had they known? How had they anticipated such an attack? I don't care what defenses you have, Zirak said, his anger rising. You cannot stop the Zorathian Empire. We're not trying to stop you, Admiral. Captain Reyes's voice softened. We're trying to make you understand. This space, this territory, it's not just ours. It was built for a purpose, and now you're learning what that purpose is. Zirak felt a pang of confusion, but it quickly turned into frustration. Purpose? What purpose? He demanded, clenching his fists. You're not making sense. We'll tear through your defenses, and we will take your world. There was a pause, and then Captain Reyes spoke again, her voice filled with something close to sadness. You don't understand, do you? The reason no one enters this space, Admiral, isn't because they can't. It's because they know what happens when they do. Zirak's confusion deepened. What happens? The human captain's voice was now sharp, as if trying to reach him through the fog of his pride. You're not just fighting us. You're fighting everything we've built to protect ourselves. The knowledge, the technology, the people who have dedicated their lives to defending this space, this system. It's all part of something far greater than you can comprehend. You've just crossed into something that was designed to be unbeatable. Zirak's mind was spinning. He had believed that the humans were weak, easily overrun, but this was something different. What kind of defense system could hold? Off an entire empire? Enough of your riddles! Zirak shouted, his patience at an end. I've given you every chance to surrender. Your time is up. Suddenly, as if on cue, the human ships pulled back. The barrage of fire stopped, and the fleet that had once surrounded them began to retreat. Zirak watched, dumbfounded, as the enemy ships moved away from his fleet, leaving the Zorathians in a strange and eerie silence. What is this? Zirak demanded, turning to Solara. Why are they retreating? Solara was just as confused. I'm not sure, Admiral. They've never pulled back like this before. It's as if they're waiting. Zirak felt a creeping sense of dread. He had been prepared for a battle, a fight to the death. But this was something entirely different. The humans were not afraid. They were calculating. They were playing a game that he didn't fully understand. A strange energy filled the air as the silence stretched on. The Zorathian fleet was still, its ships waiting for something, anything to break the calm. Then, the message came. This time, it was not from Captain Reyes. It was something else, something far more unsettling. "Admiral Zirak," a voice boomed, over the communication channels. It was deep, echoing like the voice of an ancient being. "You are trespassing. You have violated the boundaries of the sacred space we have protected for eons. You will learn why no one enters, and you will never leave." Zirak's eyes widened in shock as the voice continued, its words resonating through the very hull of the vanguard of Zorath. "You have disturbed the peace of a system created by your ancestors' greatest enemies, and now you will face the consequences of your ignorance." Before Zirak could respond, the very fabric of space around the Zorathian fleet began to warp. The stars themselves seemed to bend and twist, as if the universe itself was reacting to the intrusion. The Zorathian ships shook violently, their engines sputtering as the strange gravitational anomalies intensified. "Admiral, the ship's systems are failing," Solara cried. "We're being pulled into something we can't escape." Zirak's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and disbelief. The power of his fleet, his empire, was nothing against this force. The humans hadn't just built defenses around their space. They had built something far older, far more dangerous than anything he could comprehend. The Zorathian ships struggled to hold their positions, but the pull was relentless. The warships began to drift, their weapons useless against the unseen force. The fleet was trapped, completely at the mercy of whatever had been waiting for them. "Admiral," Solara said, her voice filled with despair, "we are out of options. We are at their mercy." Zirak's gaze remained fixed on the screen, where the vastness of human space seemed to be closing in around them. The humans had shown them one thing above all else, that they were not just defending a planet. They were guarding something far, more powerful, something that had been waiting for centuries to be unleashed. The realization hit Zirak like a ton of bricks. The Zorathians had come here to conquer, to dominate, but they had crossed into something far beyond their understanding. And now they were learning why no one, not even the most powerful empire, dared to enter this space. The Zorathian fleet was in chaos. The vanguard of Zorath, once the pride of their empire, shook violently as it was pulled deeper into the unknown. Zirak gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white. His mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. The strange force that had trapped them in this part of space was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The stars themselves seemed to be warping, bending in impossible ways, and Zirak could feel the weight of an ancient power pressing in on him. "Admiral, the fleet is losing control!" Solara shouted, her voice strained. She was at her console, frantically trying to stabilize the ship's systems. "We can't break free. Our engines are dead. We're at the mercy of whatever this is." Zirak's jaw tightened. He had always believed that the Zorathian Empire was invincible. They had conquered countless worlds, defeated armies larger and more powerful than anything the universe had to offer. But now, they were nothing. Helpless. He turned to face Solara, his expression hardening. "How long until we're completely disabled?" Zirak asked, his voice low. "Minutes at best," Solara replied, her voice tight with fear. "There's nothing more we can do. The fleet is trapped. We can't even send a distress signal." Zirak looked out the viewport, staring at the swirling, distorted space around him. The human ships that had once surrounded them were now gone. It was as if they had never been there. Everything had vanished into the unknown, leaving only the Zorathian fleet to drift aimlessly in the grip of an ancient force. In the silence, Zirak's mind wandered. He had heard the voice, the deep ancient tone that had warned them. He had no idea what it meant, but it was clear now, the humans had not just defended their world. They had been guarding something far more powerful, something far beyond the Zorathians' understanding. The Zorathians had always prided themselves on their technology, their strength, and their military might. But this was something else. Zirak felt a growing sense of dread as he realized the truth. They had not come to conquer a planet. They had come to violate something sacred. The humans were not just defending their world. They were protecting something that had been hidden for centuries. And now, the Zorathians had learned the hard way why no one dared to enter this space. "Admiral," Solara's voice broke through, his thoughts filled with urgency. "The fleet is being pulled into a singularity. We don't have much time left." A singularity. Zirak's heart sank. This wasn't just a defensive system. It was a trap. A trap designed to erase anyone who dared to cross the boundary. "We need to leave," Zirak said, his voice suddenly filled with a sense of desperation. "Now." But even as he spoke, the gravitational pull intensified. The vanguard of Zorath groaned under the pressure, its engines failing completely. Zirak looked around at the other ships in the fleet. They were all in the same condition, their shields failing, their engines silent. The Zorathian fleet was now just a collection of floating metal, unable to escape. Zirak slammed his fist against the console. "No! We will not die here! We will fight!" His words were defiant, but even he knew they were empty. There was no fight left to give. The humans had shown him that their strength didn't lie in weapons or firepower. Their strength lay in their knowledge, in their ability to manipulate the very fabric of space itself. And now, they were going to make sure that the Zorathians learned a lesson they would never forget. Just as Zirak's mind raced with thoughts of survival, the communications system flickered to life once again. This time, the voice that came through was not Captain Reyes's voice, but the same deep, echoing voice that had spoken to them earlier. "You have violated the peace of our people," the voice said, its tone filled with an ancient authority. "You have shown no respect for the boundaries we have set. And now you will face the consequences." Zirak's breath caught in his throat. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. "What is this? What have you done to us?" The voice seemed to almost pity him. "We are the Guardians, the keepers of this space. You have come to a place where even the strongest empires can be undone by their own hubris." Zirak's mind raced. Guardians? Who were they? And why had they allowed the humans to be so powerful? "You were never meant to succeed, Admiral," the voice continued. "You were never meant to break our defenses. You were never meant to enter this space. But now you have, and you will learn the true meaning of failure." Zirak's heart pounded in his chest. He knew it was too late. The Zorathian Empire had no more tricks, no more strategies to pull from their vast arsenal. The humans had prepared for everything, and now it was time for the Zorathians to pay the price for their arrogance. A strange calm washed over Zirak. There was no escape, no way out. The gravitational forces were closing in around them, pulling the fleet toward the singularity. All he could do now was watch as his empire was undone in front of his eyes. The communications channel buzzed one last time. "This is the end of the Zorathian Empire," the voice said, its tone filled with finality. "You will never return to this space. Your legacy will be erased, and your people will be forgotten." Zirak didn't speak. There were no more words to say. The Zorathian fleet, once a mighty force feared throughout the galaxy, was now trapped in an inescapable fate. As the last remnants of the fleet were pulled into the singularity, Zirak's final thought was not of anger or hatred, but of regret. He had come to conquer, but now he understood the truth. The humans weren't just defending their world, they were guarding something much more powerful. And in the end, the Zorathians had been the invaders, the ones who had overstepped their bounds. As the singularity consumed the fleet, Zirak's final vision was of the stars fading away, swallowed by the very force he had tried to conquer. The Zorathian Empire was no more. The Zorathian fleet's last stand was not one of glorious battle, but of a bitter realization. The humans had not just defended their planet, they had been protecting something ancient, something far more powerful than anything the Zorathians had ever encountered. The destruction of the fleet was not just a military defeat, it was a lesson. Some spaces in the universe were sacred, and no one, no matter how powerful, could enter them without consequence.